It is time. It is time. It's time to stop hiding. It's time to stand up. It's time for Christians to come together to share their testimony, to inspire hope, and to join their brothers and sisters as we answer the call. It's time to wake up the lions. And I have a lion with me here today. Folks, have the extreme pleasure of bringing this young man on to one of my shows again. He was gracious enough to be on one of my other programs. And at that point, we did talk about his business and his faith, and it was incredibly impressive. I'm really glad that we have him back with us today. Please welcome the strength and nutrition coach for Christian men, Sean McManus. Sean, how are you doing today, brother? And welcome to the show.
Rory, I'm doing great, man. It's great to be with you. Great to see you again, and happy to be here with your listeners.
All right. Thank you, man. We have a little bit of a technical difficulty, folks. I think we're going to get through it. Should be good. We may hear a little bit of a click or a pop, but bear with us because we're pushing through trying to get this done. Everybody's trying to stop us at all at all corners. Now, Sean, I know that you coach Christian men. You work with them through strength and nutrition. One of the things you're working on with them is to try and kill their passivity. Tell me about how that works a little bit.
Yeah, man. So I've just seen a big problem in particular, but especially Christian men in today's world, in today's economy, and it's as Christian men, we're called to be the leaders of our households, the leaders of our home, and leaders in our communities. And I see a lot of Christian men that are more or less sitting on the sidelines of life and allowing life to happen to them. And they're checking the boxes. They're going to church. They're spending time with the family, but their life isn't on fire. Their marriage isn't on fire. Their relationship with their kids isn't on fire. Maybe they're going to a job that they very much dislike. They don't feel fulfilled in their work, and they're just not doing anything about it. And I,
Hmm.
I just see that as an issue. As Christians, we're called to serve our God, and He's a big God, and I think we should serve Him well. And I don't think that means just kind of floating through life without any purpose or drive.
No, I love that. I mean, honestly, that's a strong idea that we have behind this entire show, behind our entire movement that we're working on right now, is that passivity isn't getting it anymore. And, sitting back and letting everything happen to us that's happened as Christians for the last, 4 to 6 years has kind of put us in a spot where we're apologizing all the time. And it sounds like maybe that's a little bit about what you're talking about.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we're called to be bold in our faith, and we should live that out in our actions, but not only in our actions, we should live that out in our words as well.
Nice. Nice. I tell you what, I know we have a lot to get into here today, but Sean, tell everybody a little bit about who you are, where you come from, and kind of how God has influenced your life up until this point.
Yeah, of course. So I am originally from a little small town in the foothills of North Carolina. I still reside in North Carolina now, but I am no longer in my hometown. Grew up on a small farm there, so just love the farm life growing up. All kinds of animals, all kinds of stuff to do. I mean, we spent I spent my entire childhood outside, so that was good. But I had the blessing of having parents that were very strong and very rooted in their faith. So in a sense, God has always been a part of my life. He's always been a very big part of my life. My parents made sure that that was the number one thing in the household, in life in general. So I don't have one of those, testimonial stories, the Paul story, super dramatic. This is the day I laid everything down, and but I can very distinctly remember growing up and Jesus always being in all the time. His presence were there, the principles were there. He was just he was and yeah, I kind of remember when I was probably I don't know, middle school age, 10 to 12, somewhere in that direction. I remember making the decision to follow him and kind of made that decision over and over again. It just kind of kept coming back and followed him the best I knew how through high school and through my college years. And there were times that I felt like my relationship was good, and then there was times where maybe I was focusing on the wrong things.
Hmm.
And I think that's a big part of the Christian journey in general. I don't think anybody is immune to that happening because we're human. We're not perfect, and sometimes we get fixated on the wrong thing. There are definitely periods in my life where he was more my focus, and I knew he was more my focus, and there was always more meaning to life during time versus maybe when I kind of had him on the back burner, and I felt like I needed to focus on something else. Um, but kind of coming into starting my career after I got out of college, and just kind of that stepping out on my own, stepping into adulthood, um, getting married, things of that nature. That was really, when you get married, things start to test your faith. In a sense, you start living with someone that you love and someone that you know, but there's truly nothing like living with someone full time and being married to someone and learning all of the things about them, all the good things, all the bad things. Um, so there were certainly some trial periods there, as I think there is with all marriages. Nothing crazy, nothing too major, but then we started expanding our family, and we had our first child, and that was a incredible time and also a very challenging time. Um, so that was just big changes effectively. Now we were responsible for this beautiful little blessing, and as new parents do, we knew nothing about it, or we thought we did, but we really didn't. It was a very eye-opening experience. Uh, um, during that time, during that transition period, I can distinctly remember it was hard. It was hard for my wife and I. It was hard for us to communicate well. It was hard for us to kind of figure out, what to do day to day, and how to build systems and rhythms and routines with our little one, and how to still be married to each other and love each other well and make time for each other, because now we felt like our lives consisted of this beautiful little blessing that we had, but we still had to make time for each other. So there was definitely some transition there, and I can distinctly remember searching for a way to become a better man, and searching for a way to become a better husband, and searching for a way to better my marriage. And I started doing some digging, and I started listening to some podcasts on the subject, and uh, things of that nature. And I finally got linked up with a group. Um, I'll just give them a shout out here, called the Family Captain, and it's eye opening. It was, I learned how to lead my family well. I learned that God put that leadership ability in me, and that it's good, because that's not really something we as men hear in church often. There's some churches that teach it, but it's, masculinity and godly masculinity isn't really something that gets talked about a lot in church. And masculinity in general has just been squashed by our culture. Um, so that was kind of I want to say kind of a turning point in my life as far as that goes, because that really led me on a journey to increase my faith even further, and really get that even a better connection with Jesus than I had then, and really lean into him being the center of my life. Um, and because I was kind of under this impression that when you got married, your wife was your everything. And
Sure.
don't get me wrong, I love my wife. My wife is my favoriteest person in the entire
Hmm.
world. But she does not belong on a pedestal in my life. Jesus belongs on a pedestal in my life.
Hmm.
So that was a very eye-opening experience for me. Um, but yeah, that kind of leads us where we are now. We've got our two little boys, and we're living in our marital roles as best we can, and that's kind of where we are now.
I love that. I really do. You've got a great story and great family too. It's it's been
Thank you.
fun kind of following along with you and your journey and them also, because I've known you for a little while here. But how has that very strong faith of yours sort of come into play in your business then as well?
Yeah. So I always had a pretty good idea that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I'd always wanted to do something on my own. I'd always wanted to build something. I never liked the idea of having a boss. And so I started to explore that a few years ago, and I tried a couple different businesses, and um, ended up leaving my corporate job of 8 years. I think it's been 2 years, almost 2 years now. So when I left there, I was in this pursuit to find what God had called me to do because I just didn't know. I was like, in my heart, I knew I was like, God, you have something else for me. I just don't know what it is, and I didn't know how to find it out, Rory. Like I just didn't know. There was a couple. I'm a firm believer in throwing darts at the wall sometimes and seeing what sticks because I think a lot of us are, we're almost waiting on God to give us a banner in the sky. Like this is what you're called to do for the rest of your life. And I don't think that's the case. I'm sure that's the case for some people. But I had that thought and that feeling, and I'm like God, when are you going to paint it in the clouds of what you want me to do? There's something here. I know it is. I just don't know what it is. So, I'm praying about it a lot. I'm in the Word a lot. I'm talking to, you know, other godly men that I look up to a lot, and just trying to figure it out. And the first thing I did was I went into sales for a solar company, which was not my cup of tea. I did, I did okay. I did well, but um, it was one of those things that the job was sold to me, and they claimed I was going to make all this money if I just worked hard and learned quickly. And I was like, man, I can work hard and learn fast. Like, there's no problem
Right.
there. Um, so I tried that, for a little while, but I didn't really like the way the company did business, and so I got out of that, and I had some construction experience. So I went that route, doing home repair handyman work for a little while. Um, wasn't a huge fan. I didn't mind that work, but I was like, this is not what I want to do. And so, I was doing some coaching for some friends of mine, for some buddies, for some guys that I met because I was in shape, and they were like, "Well, you're in shape. You can help us get in shape." And I was like, "Well, that's cool. We'll try that." So I'd been dabbling in that part time, and then I very distinctly remember it. I had these two businesses going. I was doing some coaching, and then I was doing some construction work and some handyman work also. Trying to support my young family, and it's just a lot of work because they were both new businesses, and I really didn't have people calling me. I had to go find customers. So it's kind of a weird God thing, but I remember I was literally walking into a Mexican restaurant. I was picking up takeout for my family, and I think I just had a conversation with my dad, and I just kind of said a little prayer, and I was like, God, what do you want? Like, what do you want from me? What am I supposed to be doing? And it's very distinctly as I heard I had this thought in my head, and I heard him, and it was just, I want you to help make my men strong again. I was like, okay, that's interesting. That's a big thing. Um, and I don't really kind of bring that up a lot, Rory, because I think, you know, in my lifetime, I've seen Christians in there. Well, I hear God say this, and I hear God say that, and it's and maybe God does speak to those people that way. I'm not saying He doesn't, but this was almost a one time in my life where I know for certain that's who that was. Um, and so I started diving into that a little bit more, and I started moving in the direction of the strength training and nutrition coaching. And man, I've never been more fulfilled in my work than I am right now. And so it's very much it's a blessing, and there's been risk. There's been times where my faith has been tested tremendously, uh, and we still have those times, but I just know that this is right now, and it's a good feeling. It's a good place to be.
Those are huge statements, brother. They really are, and I love hearing them from you. I've been cheering for you since I met you, so I'm glad that it's working out the way that it is. I know what you mean. You hear people say that a lot, especially with some of the things that I do, because I talk about faith a lot, in my podcasts and with people that I talk to. Um, but when that's the voice that you're hearing, that's the voice you're hearing. And, I've been there, and there really is no other way to describe it except that. It's just, there's no question at that moment that that's what you're hearing. And when you're called, man, you have to answer. You just have to answer. So I'm really glad to hear that you recognized it and that you did. How long ago was that? Do you mind me asking?
Let's see. I'm trying to think. So I've been full time in the strength and nutrition coaching for we're coming up on a year.
Hmm.
Um, so it would have been a little over a year ago.
Nice, nice. With everything else you had going on, that's what you heard. So I
Yeah.
get it. Part of your mission is to, and we said it earlier, was to kill the passivity that is in men. And the message that you heard was make my men strong again. Um, Based on your experience with what you see every day and conversations you have, what is what is the reason? What is has been the cause of men becoming so weak, men becoming so passive, and men becoming not even weak just physically, but weak in their resolution, the way that we as a group have today.
That's a good question. I think there's a couple of pieces. I think one piece is we live in a world of comfort. There's not much that we have to be uncomfortable with. I mean, you can order whatever food you want depending on where you live and have it delivered to your door.
Hmm. Right.
I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I've used DoorDash. I think it's wonderful, but it's just we just don't have to fight for much anymore. So I think there's that piece. I think the other piece is masculinity as a whole has been squashed and stepped on for a long time. And men have come to believe that they've come to believe that they're better men if they're more effeminate because that's what society's been preaching to them. And quite honestly, Rory, I don't think this is an issue that is talked about enough in the church. I don't think there's enough churches out there that talk about the importance of godly masculinity. They don't talk about the importance of, as a man goes, so goes the household. They don't talk about the importance of a man stepping up and leading well. And you know as well as I do that you can't lead anyone well until you lead yourself well,
Oh yeah.
which is where, the self-discipline and the self-control and, things of that nature come in. But because men have not only been preached at that it's better for them to be effeminate, but nobody's told them that it's good to be a man and that God made you that way. And there's certain aspects of your masculinity that is different than femininity, and it's a good thing. And He designed you that way. So that's kind of that's what I think has gotten us to where we are now.
Hmm. I don't think you're wrong, and I really appreciate you fielding that question. It's not like I prepared you for it or anything. I kind of hit you with it out of left field. So um, now, when you're dealing with
Of
this,
course.
when you're dealing with this, when you meet this in your clients, and with what your focus is, do you find that you end up being not just a strength and nutrition coach, but also, kind of a life coach in terms of dealing with all the different issues that your clients have?
Sometimes. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we get into all kinds of stuff. I've talked with my clients about marriage. I've talked with my clients about their kids. I've prayed with my clients when, grandma's passed away. So it's a good strength and nutrition coaching is kind of the starting point. And we move forward from there. That's the thing that I found is it's an easy step into leading yourself well because it has direct results. Your body physically changes. Your mind becomes more clear. And you start building discipline with this habit, and you start building self confidence because you're actually sticking to something that you said you were going to do,
Hmm.
because that's how we build self-confidence is we keep the promises that we make to ourselves. So you start doing that, and you have someone that's holding you accountable. You have someone that you have invested money with, and there's a piece to that as well, because you know as well as I do that if you've got money on the line, the odds of you actually sticking to it are much higher. Um,
Oh yeah.
so, but yeah, we definitely get into more than just strength and nutrition coaching. Strength and nutrition coaching is kind of the vehicle that we use. I'm more concerned about a man stepping into his role as a leader and regaining his self confidence, because that's what happens, man. When guys become effeminate, when guys feel like their opinions don't matter, when they feel like they're not allowed to speak up for what they want or what the truth is that they believe, it just crushes their spirit.
Yeah.
And a lot of the guys that I talk to just need to know, and they need to hear that they matter, because they feel like the only thing that they're at is paying the bills. That's all they're good for.
Hmm.
And man, there's so much more to life, so much more to than just paying the bills. And their feelings matter. How they show up matters.
Right.
How they look at themselves matters. And guys
Yeah.
need to hear that.
Yeah, they do. I had somebody on here recently, and when I heard them talking about it, I knew that you were, coming up soon. So I was, thinking I'm going to ask Sean this question when I see him. But they were fairly critical of,
Oh.
yeah, they were fairly critical of a few members of their clergy leadership, their pastoral leadership
Okay.
in their church, and because they really were very heavy, almost, and this is someone else's word, but slovenly, type of thing.
Hmm.
Basically, just showed like no discipline, no restraint, type of thing. And the argument, which was made off the air, was that how can you, believe in people who clearly have no restraint, no aren't living without anything, and then they get up there and they preach to you about making the sacrifices necessary. How important do you think that is to be leading by example, especially in the church like that?
Mm.
Not to put you on the spot or anything.
I will answer this. I'm going to answer this for myself first.
Okay.
I find it extremely hard to respect a grossly obese pastor. And I don't think physical fitness is everything. So don't hear what I'm not saying.
Right.
Um, but it's not nothing. And we are taught by God's word to not be gluttonous. And obviously, if you are grossly overweight, there is some gluttony there. The other piece to that, and I know we're all sinners. Like I'm not saying I don't have my sins. I have mine as well.
Sure.
But God has given us this body, and He's given it to us on lease. So the example that I use sometimes is when a friend lets you borrow his car, do you return it dented up, scratched up, out of gas, dirty and disgusting, tires popped? Probably not.
No.
Most people return a car in better shape than they got it in.
Right.
So if the creator of the world has given us a physical and able body to use while we're here, why in the world do we think like we can just beat the heck out of it, not take care of it, abuse it, and then give it back to him? Because we're giving it back to him at some point in time.
True.
So as far as how important it is to lead by example, from a masculinity standpoint, in the family, it is my job as the leader of my family to lead by example. People don't follow you by what you say, they follow you by what you do. So, in a pastoral position, he has even more leadership because he's now leading a flock. He's not just leading his family, but he's leading a flock as well. So, in that case, it's even more important that he leads by example. Because I mean, are you going to listen to a like I don't know. We say a pastor struggles with a porn addiction, and he's standing in the pulpit and he's preaching about the evils of lust. Similar scenario.
Right.
So why is that not okay? But you can stand up there and be 100, 200 pounds over, and that is okay.
Yeah. I appreciate your
Hope that
opinion on
answered your
that.
question a little bit.
Yeah, I would say so. I would say so. I think in any way, when you're leading by example, you have to take those things into account. But it's a particular note. There's
Hmm.
in this case, and it leads me to kind of building discipleship, and that sort of thing. One of the things that inspired me to do this podcast was I've witnessed the movement of young lions in the church, and they are there. They are voracious. They are ready to go. And it's young men and women that are devout in their faith. They are not taking a back seat to anybody. They're tired of toning down the God thing, and they're announcing very proudly that they're Christians. They're not hating anyone else. They're not putting anyone else down. They're simply saying, "I am," and He is. And it's a very strong movement. It's an army that's being built to fight this battle that I think we all know is coming. But there's a huge piece missing. And I think that the piece that's missing is leadership. We have all these young lions out there, and we don't have any of the older, more experienced lions leading them, willing to go through the wall first. They're all more than willing to bring them in and, add them to the congregation and add them to their numbers and take their tithing. But boy, they're sure not willing to jump out front there and go through that wall first and get bloody. And so part of what I like to do on this program is talk about building that discipleship. And it sounds as though you use your business to do that in addition to doing it with your family. Is that safe to say? And how else do you go about doing that?
Yeah. It's definitely safe to say that's my primary way of it at this point in time. I use social media for the business, getting on podcasts like this. And I'm very, very adamant. I only work with Christian men. I don't work with, I don't know, you could say secular men, but that is in my advertisement. That is in my, day-to-day talks and stuff. And um, that's where I feel I can serve best. And that's what I'm doing right now.
Now, when you say that you only work with Christian men, is that because faith is such a big part of your coaching? Or is there, some quality about, Christian men that, you want to work with as opposed to not?
I think part of it is because faith is such a big part of my coaching. Um, but the other piece is there, man, fitness coaches are a dime a dozen right now. And there's plenty of coaches out there that'll work with anyone and everyone, and that's fine. I don't have any issue with that whatsoever. But there's not near as many that are like, hey, um, I'm full of faith. Our coaching is going to be based around that in some way. The reason that we do this is to glorify God with our bodies, is to take care of the body that He gave us, to better lead the family that He gave us. Um, so that's the reason behind it. We're not just doing this to look good. That's a perk.
Yeah.
We can go into that a little bit, but the biggest piece to this, Rory, is just like we were talking about, providing those men with some confidence again, providing those men with the confidence to step into that leadership position, to look at their life and realize that, hey, I've been kind of drifting around, and God made me for more than that, and to give them the self-respect to be able to step into that.
I love that because that's really what discipleship is at its heart as well, is building other men to be leaders, to go lead other men. And it sounds like every one of your clients is on that path to becoming a leader themselves, getting back to their own leadership of their own people. Am I close?
Yeah, that's certainly what we're working towards. Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent, man. Excellent. You're giving a lot back to these guys. That's for sure. Um, what am I not asking you about your business? What do we not know about your business, about you as a Christian, as a father, as a husband, as a leader? What have I not asked you today, brother, that I want to make sure we get out there to people?
Oh man. I don't know, your listeners might have figured this out a little bit already, but I had a good friend of mine and we were chatting. It was about a month ago. And this guy's had quite the journey of faith and just quite the life journey in general. Like this guy's been through some stuff. There was some homelessness there. There was some uh yeah, I think at one point he lost custody of his kids and ended up fighting to get it back. And like is he's the dude's been through some stuff. Um and we were chatting one day, and he was talking about his faith journey, and he was talking about some stuff that he was exploring in it, and it was just he was almost fearful to tell me about it, and he said the way that he put it, he said, "This is what I'm doing." I said, "Okay," and we talked about it a little bit, and I said, "As long as you don't go away from Christ, like the Christ, the only Jesus Christ, then I'm good." And that's what I told him. I'm not here to judge what he's doing, or how he's going about his faith journey. And um, we know that there's one true Son of God, and He died on the cross to forgive our sins. And if we believe in Him and we give our lives to Him, that we are saved. So as long as that's the premise, okay, man. That's cool. And he said, I've walked away from Him before, and I will never do it again. And that's what he told me. And I said, and that's wonderful to hear. And I was like, why? What was the deal what was the hesitation? Like, what were you worried about? And he said, man, I just didn't know if you were going to report me to Christian HR. And I was like, I started laughing. And I said, man, I said, I am not the guy that would be on the Christian HR board. Like,
Wow.
that is not me. We see, we see Rory a lot of, especially in Christian realm, a lot of arguments between denominations, a lot of arguments with different theological teachings, and of course there are basics that we have to agree on. There are non-negotiables. um, but man, I see so many Christian brothers and sisters getting so caught up in details that are just minor when it comes to their, let's just say, their denomination, because I don't even want to say their faith, and creating barriers in their lives and barriers with other godly Christian believers because they're not the same denomination, or they don't believe the same little minor details, or they themselves think they're Christian HR.
Right.
And,
Monitoring everybody else.
you know, exactly, exactly. And
Yeah.
this is what I tell people when we have this conversation. I'm like, look, as long as you believe Jesus is the one true King, Jesus is the Son of God, Jesus died on the cross to forgive your sins, and He rose again so that you could be reunited with the Heavenly Father. Like, I'm good, man. We can have a conversation. We can disagree about other minor details. Like, that's okay with me. As long as you love Jesus and you're trying to follow Jesus, I love Jesus, I'm trying to follow Jesus. Like, let's just do it together. It's okay.
Yeah. I love that. And I think that's part of what I'm seeing with this group of young lions is that no matter what their particular denomination is, no matter what the particular discipline is, they are much more worried now about their own relationship with Jesus than they are with what, the rule is on page 7 of the manual
Hmm.
on how I'm supposed to or where I'm supposed to or when I'm supposed to. It's much more about what is my personal relationship with Jesus. And they are together on it. Those folks, and I'm talking the 20 something generation right now, which just shocks me, shocks
It's
me.
awesome.
but my boys are leaders in it, and that's one of the reasons why I've been able to see it firsthand. You know, I've had a pretty good seat for the formation and the growth of this thing, and
That's awesome.
yeah, I mean, just in Indianapolis, I've watched it go from 50, 60, 80 up to hundreds to where it's now approaching thousands, and it's
That's amazing.
in a couple of years, and that's just one little thing that I happen to have an eye on. But again, the leaders would rather like war with each other. They would rather attack and denigrate and criticize each other because like that's easier, I think, than going out and facing what the real evil is out there. And hey, if you have any ideas on what we do to stop that or, how we address that, I'd love to hear your thoughts, brother. There's no right or wrong answer on this one.
Oh man, I think it just comes down to the continual raising and the continual stepping up of people um, into those leadership positions. I think there's going to have to be maybe some challenging, maybe some challenging and some godly confrontation. And we take that back to masculinity. That's been frowned upon.
Hmm.
Confrontation has been frowned upon for some time. And Jesus did not set out to offend people, but man, was he good at it. And I think there's a lesson there. Um,
Yeah, there is.
there is a truth, and that truth needs to be said, and we are responsible for saying it, and we are responsible for living it out, regardless of whose feelings it hurts, and we don't set out to do that.
Right.
I'm not gonna wake up tomorrow morning and just go, gosh, I just can't wait to offend this person today. Um, but it's my job to live in the truth and to walk that out.
Sure.
So I think it's going to take people stepping up and stepping into those positions and maybe giving some challenge and giving some confrontation.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Appreciate your thoughts. Let me ask you one more thing, just in terms of your position and how you are already helping men with masculinity, with fighting passivity, with embracing their faith. Also, um, you part of your practice, part of your coaching is, I believe, helping men connect with their faith again through strengthening their mind and their body and their soul. Is that fair to say?
To a degree, it's not something that I would say we specifically target. I definitely think there is some practice there,
Mhm.
and that comes back to the discipline piece. When we start to discipline our body and our mind, that discipline shows up in other ways, and oftentimes it's discipline in pursuing your faith further. It's discipline in spending time in the Word. It's discipline in trying to spending time with Christ. So I definitely think that there are adverse effects there, for sure.
Sure. In the work that you do you find it more that strengthening the body helps strengthen the spirit, or do you find that strengthening the spirit helps strengthen the body? Or is it, 50-50?
I think it can be some of both. There's some conviction that has to take place. I think one of the issues that I see in Christians today, and I get this argument sometimes, is they think that spiritually, as long as they're checking all the right boxes, that the physical doesn't matter. And I think, that's where we come into, obesity in the church, obesity, in a pastoral position. Um, they use that, well, my spirituality is good enough, so I don't have to worry about the other. And they just use that as an excuse. So there certainly has to be some conviction there. And I think some of that conviction comes from learning that the body does matter and figuring out that, yes, I am a steward of this body and God gifted it to me. And I am responsible for taking care of it because it's still His. So I definitely think there's some give and take there.
Nice.
I don't know if that was a super clear answer to your question or not, but
A little political, but I'm going to forgive you because I've hit you with so much stuff that I didn't prepare you for. But I know you, so I'm like, I know he can handle this stuff. This is great, and I appreciate you. Last question, and I'm going to ask this based on what you've learned in your professional work. Okay, and based on what you know already about faith and whatnot, as you've watched the transformation of a lot of men who have undergone that transformation, very much under your coaching. There are men and women that are out there right now that are listening, and so this would be great advice for any of them too. On this particular podcast, we actually have a few more women who are listening right now. So to the men and women that are out there listening, and maybe they've fallen off in their physical training, their physical discipline. Maybe they've fallen off in their faith just a little bit, and they're listening, and they want to get back. They want to get back to their faith. They want to get back to their physical fitness. Um, what's a good first step? How do they start the journey back? Um, from your perspective as a coach.
Yeah, that's good. So my first thing would be to start.
Nice.
That is step number one. There is no perfect place. There is no perfect time. The only time that exists is the time that you're in, because yesterday is completely gone and you have no idea if tomorrow even exists. So just starting, and we get a little more practical and tactical on the physical fitness side would be what I do typically with my clients or even people that I just talk to and help. It's we need to start stacking small wins. The worst thing we can do when it's been a really long time since you've pursued any kind of physical fitness, excuse me, any kind of physical fitness or any kind of health routine in general, the worst thing that you can do is go all in all at one time, because that is not sustainable. And what I coach with my clients is sustainability, because my idea behind this is not to make you lose a bunch of weight in our time together. And then when we stop working together or when you go on about your way, that it all comes back because I didn't teach you how to continue to do it. My heart behind this is to teach you how to do this and it become a permanent staple in your life. So it's a life change, not just a physical change. It's a way of being change. But as far as practicality, as far as small wins, one thing that I tell a lot of people to do is just start drinking more water. Most people that are not in good physical fitness do not, or not in good physical shape, do not drink near enough water.
Hmm.
So, I would start at half a gallon a day. If you're really not drinking any water, start at half a gallon a day. If you're doing okay already, drink a gallon a day. And do that for a week or 2 weeks. Do that consistently. Don't let up. And once you get that win in your pocket, then you can walk. Go for a 30 or 40-minute walk a couple of times a week. Do that for a couple of weeks. And then you move forward from there. So you progressively step it up because this has to be sustainable. This has to be something that you can manage. And you don't want to go too hard too fast. In terms of getting back to faith, man, check your priorities. Check check your thoughts. Where does your mind spend the most time? Where does your heart spend the most time? Um, Figure out what is in that position. What have you put on the pedestal of your life that isn't Christ?
Hmm.
That's kind of allowed you to drift back from Him. So figure out what that is, and then just start spending more time with Him. Start being intentional about your time. Maybe set the phone down 30 minutes earlier at night. Get in the Word, pray, whatever that looks like. Maybe just sitting quietly. Sometimes just sitting quietly and saying, God, I'm here. This is what I have. I don't know how to do this perfectly, but I'm here. That can go a long way.
Nice, man. I appreciate you. I love that. I love all the advice. I love your willingness to embrace all the different questions. And, I'm a fan, man. I really am. I'm over here just a fan of yours. So I love what you're doing and I love the word you're putting out. I love that you do it in the name of faith. And, brother, all my best to you and your family and everything. And thank you for coming on here today and having this conversation. So many people don't want to have it, and you just jumped at the chance. And I'm grateful to you for that. I really am. How do people reach you? They want to know Sean McManus better. They want to talk to you about, working with them to get stronger. How do they reach you, brother?
Yeah, man. So, first of all, thank you for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've tremendously enjoyed our time together, this podcast and the last one that we got to do. So, I'm a big fan of yours as well. So it's been an honor to be here with you.
Thanks.
Um, as far as reaching me, socials, right now, I'm most active on Facebook and Instagram. Facebook is at Sean McManus, and then Instagram is at the Sean McManus. So either one of those, I check my DMs pretty regularly. So if you guys want to reach out, happy to chat.
Perfect. All right. All right. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you being here.
It's been great, my man.
All right. Folks, we've said it before. We're going to say it again. It's time. It is time to wake up the lions. And, I think we proved that again today. More than that, it's time for you to take your rightful place with your brothers and sisters and let them hear you roar. Folks, the world is ready. You're ready. You just have to believe it. Till next time.